So one of the philosophies that we have at Risk IQ that's really interesting is that you can't avoid interacting with the internet. And so we have 5 different steps in which we kind of quantify like how this can be beneficial to us. So the first is any action on the internet emits signals. So for example, you and I are sitting together right now in this room, part of Risk IQ's network. And we're emitting signals by being on that network. Both my computer, your computer.
Our phones, yeah.
Yeah, our phones being in the same room. We have now been co-located in the same place for however long we're going to be together. And so the second part of that is, we're emitting signals. So these are going out into the ether. Maybe they're being recorded on the internet or they're just local inside the room. Signals are largely ephemeral. And they're going to go unnoticed unless someone's listening. So in the case of us being in the same room, if no one's logging our internet traffic as we egress out to the internet, then no one will know that we were actually together, that both of our machines were on the same network. However, and this is point 3, if the signals have been captured, then in theory they could expose the stages, elements, or infrastructure associated with an attack. So let's say, for example, that I'm planning something bad. And that, now, and people are watching me, they're recording me, they know that I'm a bad actor. Well, all the signals that I'm emitting are now being collected and analyzed by these folks to make sure that I don't do anything, that they can get it one step ahead of me. Well, now you and I are in the same location. We're emitting signals together, and if they're being captured, in theory now, there's an association where I'm
associated with a known bad, so then I could potentially be bad.
Exactly.
Or if we went to a restaurant and we both use a debit or credit card, they can say we were both at a restaurant because they can look at that record.
Exactly.
If they had it. But if I paid cash, then no one would know that I went there.
Yeah, so signals, they're everywhere. And what's important to note here is that those exposed signals, us being together for instance, could literally destroy an operation or really make it inefficient. And so if you were to leave here today and let's say that you were that I was being monitored, someone would know now to monitor you. And if you were planning something bad, now you would potentially be thwarted. Now, obviously we're not doing anything bad here, but the point of what we're trying to make is that signals are occurring all the time. And a lot of it happens just by the nature of the internet itself, being on the internet.
So a website may be pulling an image from Facebook, or sending information to Google Analytics to say, this is my traffic that's happening. All that are the signals that we're talking about, that type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of those are, they're not readily apparent to you. You may not realize that a Google Analytics tracker is present on a web page when you're viewing it, simply because it may not tell you. Another good example is that, if I'm going to send a phishing email, the act of actually sending the email itself is a pretty overt action. I'm pretty aware of as to what's going on. I can tangibly see I've created an email, I've hit the send button, I have expectations that will get delivered to you on the other end. However, behind the scenes, when I hit that send button, there's an IP address that's getting associated where the network traffic is leaving from, and that's egressing through a network and maybe going through an autonomous system. And maybe that's turning into different packets that get routed out on the internet, which then ultimately land through the email provider, which was specifically picked, and then is filtered through your email information, etc. So a lot of hidden signals there too, not just necessarily the overt ones.
So the internal and the external merging together to give you the complete picture.
Yeah, and I think what's important here is that last point, number 5, that if we have enough signals and if we're able to expose these elements of attacks, even before they're an attack, then we can essentially destroy operations and waste money of the adversary and the attacker. And the more money that they have to spend redoing their infrastructure, the more likely that we're able to stop them from conducting attacks as frequently. And another example I'd like to point out here, I think is just interesting, is that in the analyst world or the research community, there's often a desire to not want to burn infrastructure or not want to out a particular actor. And because in doing so, that actor may change and they may lose visibility. Even in cases where we're burning infrastructure, that in of itself is leading to signals being created. For instance, if we go and we out some sort of government operation, all of their infrastructure, their domains, their IP addresses, their SSL certificates, everything they're using. they may frantically go and register a whole bunch of new infrastructure so they can continue their operations.
So just that influx of new infrastructure being purchased and stood up online and put in place could be an indicator on its own.
Yeah. And when you're doing something very quickly, you might be more prone to making a mistake. Mm-hmm. And that mistake could be a signal that we capture and then use to our advantage.
Very good.